what it shows to me potentially is that Lord Mandelson's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein encompassed both the personal but also clearly potential conflicts involving work, i.e. a Labour cabinet minister talking to his friend about things that the government was doing to stimulate the markets, and that is a clear potential conflict of interest.
The tax expert Dan Needle has put some documents on social media he says he's found in the latest Epstein files. They seem to be internal government discussions, emails from 2009 that included Peter Mandelson, who was then a cabinet minister in Gordon Brown's government. Dan Needle told us he believed that Mandelson had forwarded those documents to Epstein. We've asked Lord Mandelson to comment on that this morning. He said he's not giving any interviews. Let's speak to the Times political editor, Stephen Swinford. Morning, Steve.
Good morning.
What do you make of these documents? I mean, they are obviously emails which are internal number 10 discussions. How serious do you think this is?
I think it's pretty serious. These are some of the most senior people in government at that time. So a guy called Jeremy Hayward, who was the cabinet secretary, Shriti Vadera, the city minister, and they are having a conversation about how to stimulate business lending and kind of get businesses going in the wake of the financial crisis. So that is obviously of interest to someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who had big financial interests and would have wanted inside information like that. So that, what it shows to me potentially is that Lord Mandelson's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein encompassed both the personal but also clearly potential conflicts involving work, i.e. a Labour cabinet minister talking to his friend about things that the government was doing to stimulate the markets, and that is a clear potential conflict of interest.
Is that what we would be calling this, a conflict of interest? Because some people are asking whether this is corruption, whether this is, helping somebody make money out of government decisions. I mean, these allegations, they could be quite serious. How serious do you think they are?
They could be quite serious and they could go all the way. I think Dan Needle has raised questions about whether there could be criminality involved. Now, we don't know that, so it's difficult to say at this stage. And also, we should say that we don't know that Lord Mandelson himself leaked these emails. That is a supposition and it's not established as fact yet. But given that Lord Mandelson was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein's, it is clearly serious and it's a potential problem. So you've got, at the very least, a big conflict of interest. Also worth remembering, there are suggestions that money went from Jeffrey Epstein to Lord Mandelson personally, $75,000, that money went from Jeffrey Epstein to Lord Mandelson's partner and for osteotherapy or something like that. So clearly there are connections between the two men, and that is a problem. For Keir Starmer, it just doesn't go away as an issue, because every time we get a story like this, it goes back to the question of his judgment in appointing Mandelson as a US ambassador in the first place. Why did he do that when it was known at that point that there were connections between them, him and Epstein? Now, Starmer's answer to that is, well, look, I didn't know the things we know now, but we knew a lot by that stage. We knew that he was in touch with Epstein post-conviction, and these emails have just kind of solidified and cemented that they were even deeper connections. They were financial connections, they were personal connections, and there are suggestions that there are clear intelligence about potentially his work as a cabinet minister being shared here.
Yeah, and on that note, there are a number of emails which Dan Needle has published on social media which are directly from Peter Mandelson, including one which was sent on Saturday in June in 2009, saying, interesting note that's gone to the PM. That was a note that had gone to the Prime Minister, then directly forwarded to Epstein. Is there scope now for an investigation? Is that something that you think, will be requested? There are a number of backbench MPs who are very, very upset about what is alleged to have happened. Is an investigation likely?
At the moment, the focus is on US Congress and a potential investigation there, and there are renewed calls for Lord Mandelson to give evidence, for Andrew to give evidence. Now, they don't have to do that, but there are going to be questions around that, and there's going to be a lot of questions here because of these are sensitive internal documents, and I can imagine at the very least you might get parliamentary committees looking at that, but you might also get something at the more serious end of things. So it all adds up to more significant revelations about Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein this morning.
Keir Starmer obviously wasn't in charge at that point, and you've said there were suggestions that a lot of this stuff was not known at the time. How damaging is this for the Prime Minister's own reputation?
I think it's damaging by association, and like I say, it is the judgment. A lot of Labour MPs deeply question the decision to appoint Lord Mandelson in the first place. They did raise issues about his relationship with Epstein, and Starmer went ahead and did it anyway. And in doing that, there was clearly a significant risk that he didn't know the depth of that relationship. And more information has now emerged in the public domain about that relationship. So that is the problem for Starmer, that it's a fundamental issue of his judgment, and that is something that the Prime Minister has had consistent issues with. Questions over, is he making the right choices? Is he putting the right people in place? Is he making the right policy decisions? There have been, 14, 15 significant U-turns on major policy by this stage. So that is the issue here. It is another. He wants to come back today, and he wants to talk about his trip to China. He's got a statement in the Commons this afternoon. He'd like to say that we made a kind of significant breakthrough in thawing that relationship with economic benefits. But instead, is going to be dominated by questions about his decision to appoint Mandelson as his ambassador in the US.
Yeah.
A pivotal moment in relation between the two countries.
Exactly.
So that's the problem for him.
Exactly where he does not want to be. Steve, thank you as ever. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Cheers.
That is the Times political editor, Steve Swinford. And just to repeat, we did put those allegations made by Dan Needle to Peter Mandelson. He said he would be giving no interviews and said, and I'm quoting here, "I had no idea what he is talking about."
Dan Needle, by the way, who came on to break this story with us at 8 o'clock this morning, said this is something you can do yourself if you're interested. You can go to Google the Epstein files. You can then search them. He says it's not a very good search, but if you search one of our
Spelling
listeners,
mistakes.
misspell Mandelson's name, put Mandelson's name in. One of our listeners did it with number 10. Put number 10 in,
and you'll get things to
and
come
you'll
up.
see it will just come up. And our job is all to try and work out what they are and what it could mean and who knew what when and how it fits into this chronology when it comes to Mandelson of payment and where he is in government. But you can do this. This has been dumped, vast amount of material, and it'll take weeks to go through all of it. I'd have thought there's 3 million files, aren't there?
Yeah.
And the search function doesn't sound very good, so some of it will just be laboriously going through time by time. So if you do feel so inclined to do a bit of active democracy, you can do that yourselves. We'll be doing it here at the Times as well as we continue to report on precisely what is in these files and what it means for various figures around the world.